Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have to do things slightly differently because my camera decided it was going to mess up the file for the original recording I did of this beer. But yeah, we're just going to have to kind of do a retasting and things. A little bit frustrating for me, but we'll do a little bit of a patchwork in this video. Hopefully it works out, and I hope that you guys can enjoy the video nonetheless. So yeah, for this review, we are going to return to England, and we're going to return as well to a brewery that is featured on the channel many times before. Now, these guys are a very well regarded brewery. If people were to ask me about them, they're probably best known for the different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, and they were one of the kind of really pioneering breweries in the English craft beer scene, and certainly one of the ones that really pushed this style to the top of the craft beer chain. But they've done a number of other styles over the years which have always been pretty impressive, and they are more of a kind of well-rounded brewery these days in my opinion, so definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one that I happened across here in Hong Kong. I heard very good things about it, and I will say that it did turn out to be a little bit different and pretty damn nice actually. So yeah, this is one that you do need to try if you come across it. But for this review, we are going to return to Manchester in England, which is very well known as a craft beer destination. A lot of good breweries there these days. We're going to go to the Piccadilly area of the city to be precise, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Cloudwater Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Fundamental Frequency. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this is a New England hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this is another one that I picked up at the wonderful Craftissimo in Sheung Wan over on Hong Kong Island, who always have a really interesting selection of stuff. They had a few different Cloudwater things, but this is the one that just kind of caught my eye because it had the scientific name, and I studied chemistry and astrophysics, of course. So yeah, this is the one that I decided to go with. And the other thing when it comes to Hong Kong is that, you know, in terms of pricing and things, you get a bit more bang for your buck if you go for the slightly stronger thing. So this was a double IPA. The other one I think was a paleo, and they had a regular IPA as well. But yeah, Cloudwater have always done very solid double IPAs in my experience, and so I wanted to have a little look at this one. But yeah, let's crack on then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So yeah, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Cloudwater Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the English playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, of course. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Cloudwater Brewing Company once again then. So yeah, Cloudwater Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you before, were founded in early 2015 by Paul Jones and James Campbell after the latter left Marble Brewing Company. But they were joined in the early stages by Al Wall and Will France, both of whom had a wealth of experience in home brewing, professional brewing, and a little bit of bar management as well. So between these guys, they had a very healthy pedigree for starting up their own brewery. So the original brewery, and still the one they're using today, I guess we should say, is in the Piccadilly Trading Estate, and they began brewing there in March of 2015, and they officially opened their tap room the following month in April. But soon after this, they opened up an arch under Piccadilly Station, which was called the Barrel Store, and this acted as both a tap room and a storage area for their barrel-aged beers that they started producing. But in early 2017, they closed the on-site tap room to allow for an expanded production space just to meet demand, because their beers proved to be very, very popular. And then in July of 2018, they closed the barrel store to open a new space called Unit 9, which you can find adjacent to the main brewery. But they initially started off with a 2,400 litre brew kit, but the capacity of this brewery has been increased quite dramatically over the years. Now, James Campbell left the brewery in September of 2018 to work as a brewing consultant, and then later he founded his own nano brewery called Cervezas de Altur, which I still need to find. I've not seen any of their beers at all, actually. But for a period of time, Cloudwater were contract brewing some of their beers at Brewdog up in Scotland to sell in Tesco supermarkets, but this arrangement only lasted from 2021 to 2022, and in honesty, this move from Cloudwater was quite controversial, because a number of folk within the industry felt that they'd abandoned a number of the small and independent businesses that had helped them kind of get their name off the ground and things like that. But thankfully, they wound that back, and they're now focusing a little bit more on the beer rather than kind of growing the business, if you like. And you know, their beer has gotten a lot better again in recent times from what I've heard from the English beer tubers. So yeah, that's the thing. But over the last couple of years, they've added more venues, and this includes a tap room in Bermondsey in London, which is the beer mile, of course. You should go and check that out. There's the Sadler's Cat pub in Noma near Victoria Station in Manchester, and they've also got a new beer hall at Campus in Manchester as well. But as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 580 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. But some other sources that I found when I was reviewing the notes for Cloudwater said that they've produced over 1,000 different recipes. So yeah, either 600 or 1,000 different kinds of beer that have been produced by Cloudwater in recent times. So yeah, that's everything I can really tell you about Cloudwater Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's everything about the brewery history and things like that. I'll just let you have a little look at the can on this one and tell you about the hops before we go and get the beer out of the fridge. But yeah, as you can see, this one, 440 milliliter can, it's got that lovely sort of circle thing on it. I wasn't sure if that was meant to be the outline of a speaker or something like that, because it's called Fundamental Frequency. But yeah, you can see the Cloudwater Brewing Company symbol in the middle of the can there, plain silver top on it, of course. And then yeah, this one was actually canned on the 10th of April 2024. And yeah, it says quality craft beer from Manchester on the side there as well. Like we said earlier, this one is an 8% double IPA. It is a New England hazy double IPA, which I wasn't 100% sure about before I opened the thing and tried to film the review earlier. But this particular beer is hopped with Citra, Talus and Centennial. We know all of these hops quite well. Citra, all three of them are American, incidentally. But Citra, 14% alpha acid, and a New England IPA is going to give you that lovely big kind of peachy sharpness, big juicy mango, and you're also going to get a little bit of that kind of lemon limey type character out of it. Talus, of course, I think is about 16% alpha acid, slightly higher in that regard. Big pink kind of grapefruit notes, also a wee bit of a coconut because it is a daughter of Sabro, and then Centennial is a little bit of an older hop, one of the classic C hops along with Citra. 12% alpha acid, and it usually gives you that big sort of lemony character along with a good little bit of grassy zestiness. So yeah, that's everything you need to know about the beer. I'm going to go and get the beer out of the fridge, so we'll pause the video for a second and we'll be right back. Alright guys, so beer out of the fridge then, and yeah, unfortunately you're not getting to see the pour because of all the stuff that happened with the camera, which was very frustrating, I have to say. But yeah, you can see this beer came out a lovely kind of bright yellow mango juice colour. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging you do or any adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But when it comes to IPAs, you don't often have to care about that. It's quite unusual, to be honest with you. But yeah, as you can see, the level of haze in this beer is kind of what you would expect from a New England double. The level of haze depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. And that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. But it's certainly not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England double IPAs that I've come across, but you know, it is kind of at the appropriate level. When I poured this beer the first time, we poured about 80% of it out into the glass. It was up about here, and we got a three-quarter finger frothy, kind of slightly cream coloured head out of the beer, and it stayed around for quite a wee while actually, but there wasn't too much in the way of visible carbonation in this beer, and that has kind of remained the case actually. But all in all, the appearance of this beer is pretty much what you would expect of a New England double IPA, so yeah, nothing too much more needs to be said about that actually. So yeah, we can go on and have a little look at the nose on this one. So as I've explained on the channel many a time before, for me, when it comes to New England IPAs, there are 6 different things to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of the beer. So you've got the more kind of farmhousey and yeasty side of things. You've also got the rye leaning grainy side of the beer as well. Those are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, kind of the roots of the style, but when it goes abroad, it has evolved a little bit more to lean more toward the wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, the barley malt bread, and also having a slightly sweeter component to it as well. So these are all things that I think need to be considered when it comes to this. But this beer, when I first smelled it, was quite interesting actually, but it has evolved a wee bit over the time that I've been smelling it and things. So when I first smelled this one, I thought it was a little bit more sort of yeasty and a little bit more grainy, but yeah, it actually has kind of sweetened up a little bit as my nose has kind of adjusted to the beer. So let's have a wee look at the aroma again and just describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. Yeah, so yeah, the first impression that this one gives is that it has a little bit more kind of wheaty bitiness and a little bit of graininess to it, and that kind of is the case, but it does get a little bit more yeah, it really does get a little bit more kind of bready and oaty and things like that the more that you smell of it. So yeah, the backbone of this beer is a lovely kind of brown bready hedgehog sort of bread crusty character, so a lot of that coming out of this one for sure. There's a little bit of woodiness in there. There is a little bit of cracker, and I think the more that I've smelled of this beer, the more the kind of cracker starts to come out of it. So a lovely little bit of Jacob's cream cracker in this one. The light level I'm noticing is getting a bit annoying with the camera as well. I wonder if that's what kind of buggered it up earlier, in honesty, just a light overload. But yeah, with this beer, you've got lots of kind of fluffy, fresh, white bready character in this one. That's obviously barley malt coming out of it, but there's a good little bit of kind of brown bread, a good little bit of brown bread and a good little bit of white bready character in this one. But yeah, nice little bit of grainy brown bread in there, a little bit of white bready character. But I'm finding at this point of filming, it's actually gotten a little bit sweeter, I think, over the time that I've been examining the beer, which has been a bit too long for this one in honesty. But yeah, you do get a little bit of that wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose at the top. You've got a more dense, smooth, wheaty character coming out of this one as well. And then yeah, you've also got a little bit of oaty note to the beer as well. So yeah, the oaty character in this beer is quite interesting. As I said on many reviews before, when it comes to the oaty side of a New England IPA, it can very often give you an indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. Essentially, the creamier the oats are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. We know we're drinking this beer at about 2 months old, which in my experience is a very good point in time for a New England IPA. But yeah, you get a lovely kind of oaty creaminess out of this one as well. you are starting to smell a little touch of dryness from the oats, I would add though, but there's a nice little bit of sweetness out of the booziness of this beer too. I'm getting more Werther's Original, more butter candy, butterscotchy kind of notes out of this one. Not too much in the way of biscuit though, I would hasten to add. But yeah, the malty backbone in this beer is really quite nice. So yeah, I don't know if we need to say too much more about the kind of malty side of the aroma, but the yeasty side of things for sure in this one, it's got more of a, you can smell at the back of the nose, there is a wee bit of yeasty character to this beer, and I would say it's a little bit more sort of brown bready and things like that as well. But the hoppy side of this beer is quite interesting too, because you do get quite a little bit of a more deeper, danker character out of this one. So remember, when it comes to your IPAs, there are three kinds of hoppings that you can use. So you've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That's responsible for most of your bitterness, and it also gives you that big, deep, dank aroma. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil, and that gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and it gives you a brighter kind of flavour and aroma. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma, and it gives you that sort of it mainly gives you that kind of big brighter green component as well. But you can smell with this beer, it does have a bit of a deeper, danker quality. They said that it did in its Untappd profile, which I had a little look at. So yeah, this beer, I will say, we'll talk about that in the flavour, but this beer does have a little bit of a deeper, danker kind of quality to it. But when it comes to hopping, West Coast IPAs use all three, which is why they're deeper and danker and more bitter. New England IPAs tend to rely mainly on late addition and dry hopping actually. So yeah, for me, the hoppy side of this beer, you do get a little bit of earthiness out of it for sure. There's a nice little bit of, you do get that deeper, danker pine resiny note out of this one, which all three of the hops incidentally are capable of giving you. You get that nice sort of zesty, grassy character as well, which I do really quite like. And yeah, the way all of that pieces together, I think, is very, very nice too. So yeah, all in all, the green component of this beer, it does have this kind of sort of grainy, brown bready and big sort of piney resin, floral, spicy kind of character to it as well, which I think is really interesting. Now on the fruity side of things, it is kind of what you would expect if you know these hops. So for me, there's quite a little bit of that grapefruity character which you would expect from Citra, but the Talus of course gives it that bit of brightness, that pink grapefruit for sure. But yeah, good little bit of peachy character, lovely, lovely big juicy ripe mango in there, and a sort of soft kind of pineapple-y type note out of this one as well. Good little bit of like apricot as well, I would say. But yeah, a nice big sort of juicy, I get a lot of juicy kind of lemon out of this one as well from the Centennial. So yeah, a lot of the softer tropical fruits, I would say, are going to come from the Citra for sure. The Talus is going to give you the big bright pink grapefruity character, and then yeah, the Centennial is going to give you that big zesty lemony note as well, kind of with all the grassy kind of characters to it. So yeah, I think that's it's really, really interesting actually. The aroma of this one is pretty damn nice. Just going to pause the video a second to make sure the file's okay, then we'll come back in a little minute. Paranoid about this now. Alright guys, as I say, paranoid about the file a little bit, it seems to be okay. But yeah, let's have a taste of this beer now then and see how we get on. So this one is Fundamental Frequency, an 8% double IPA from the wonderful Cloudwater Brewing Company in Manchester in England. Let's do my second and hopefully last tasting of this one before we can finish off the video. Slàinte, skål, cheers. So yeah, this beer, obviously it's not the kind of first impression this time because I've tried it a few times now, but yeah, this thing, I'm going to say straight away, it is pretty damn good. It is a big change of pace from the other New England double IPAs that I've had in recent times. But it is pretty damn good. It's certainly up there with the standards of Cloudwater of old that I remember for sure. I think it's been about 3 years or so since I last reviewed a beer involving these guys. But yeah, what you're going to notice with this one straight away is that for a New England double IPA, this beer does have quite a little bit more of a bitter kick to it. It's lovely and smooth. It has got a bit more of a kind of grainy spiciness to it as well, and it is just a really kind of interesting experience actually. So yeah, do be sure to give this one a go if you get the chance. But yeah, the fruity side of this one's got a lovely oiliness to it as well. So yeah, let's just break this beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So, middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, you have this lovely, smooth, kind of brown bready, bread crusty character in there. It's actually got a little bit of toastiness to it, and I find it does get drier and drier the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, further forward on that kind of bread crusty character, you get a wee bit of woodiness in there. You get a wee bit of a kind of Jacob's cream crackery kind of character sitting on top of it as well. Then you've got a layer of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character on top of that. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of drier brown bready character sitting on top of that. And the brown bready character does give you a little bit of graininess, but like I said, I think the more you drink of this beer, the more the breadiness sort of sweetens up. So yeah, brown bready bread crust, a little bit of wood, cracker, drier brown bread on top of that. Then you've got the white bready character in there from the barley malt. Of course, that has a little bit more fluffiness to it, but it does also show you just that little bit of dryness as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of fluffy dryness in that brown bready character. Then you get the more dense kind of wheaty white bready character as well. So the wheat further back on that middle third of your palate, it certainly gives you a little bit more of a kind of bitiness there, but then yeah, as you move further forward, it's got a lovely kind of smoothness to it as well. But yeah, you can really feel that dense white bready wheaty character in there, and above that you're starting to get the oaty character coming out of this one. So if you go down the middle line of your tongue, you can feel the real nice creamy oaty density there, and as you go out toward the edges of the palate, it's got a little bit more of a kind of drier oaty character coming out of it, which I think is very, very nice. So you can feel that there, but I would say this beer is pretty fresh, so you're getting a lot of creamy oaty character out of it. But in the very dead centre of your palate, you've got a wee bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, which is the sweetness. That's the booziness of the beer, of course. Then just a tiny little hint of like McVitie's digestive biscuit out of this one. But yeah, I think that covers the middle third of your palate in this beer. So yeah, the way that goes together I think is quite nice, and it does get creamier and creamier, I would say, and thicker and sweeter the further into the aftertaste that you go. So let's go to the back third of the palate then. But remember, with your palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward, the more dry and bitter flavours come out further back, and the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. There's the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top of that, and the wheaty bitiness on top. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, there's definitely a little bit more of that kind of brown bready, bread crusty character in there. It feels a little bit drier and a little bit more sort of grainy, if you like. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker on top of that. The brown bready layers in there, you can feel that's a little bit lighter and more airy. Then the white bready layer sits on top of that. That feels a little bit lighter and more airy. And then yeah, you can feel the wheaty bitiness just kind of going over the top of that and lingering there into the aftertaste. On top of all of that, you've got the yeasty character coming out of the beer. And for me, the yeasty side of things, it shows you a little bit more. You've got a more kind of dense, dry, brown bready character in the centre, a bit of a sweeter brown bready character around that, then the bread crusty notes on the very edge there. So yeah, definitely you can feel the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that all of these, the malty and yeasty side of this beer goes together, I think is very, very nice. So let's go on then and have a little look at the green component actually. So yeah, good. So for me, the green component of this beer is quite interesting. So yeah, the back corners of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. So yeah, you can feel that nice little bit of green, that little bit of earthiness coming to be on this one. I'm not sure which one of the hops is going to give you that, but yeah, as you move further forward along the sides of your palate, you can feel there is a little bit of a deeper, danker, more pine resiny character coming out of this one. But yeah, you've got that nice sort of floral, a nice little bit of that kind of floral aromatic spice coming out of this one as you reach the front corners of the palate too. So there's definitely been a little bit more of a kind of early edition hopping going on with this one. So yeah, that deep dank pine resiny character in this one I think is really nice, and then yeah, a big sort of floral aromatic spice coming out of this one too. But then yeah, round the front curve of the tongue, there's a little bit of a lighter, more grassy sort of thing coming out of this one. It's got a wee bit of zestiness to it as well, and I think the more that you drink of this beer, the more oily that grassiness becomes. But I think yeah, when you go into the aftertaste with this beer, you do get more of that kind of drier pine resin and sort of floral aromatic spice. If I didn't know the hops in this one, I probably would have guessed there was a bit of Columbus in this because of the way the spiciness comes out. But yeah, quite a little bit of pine resin in there, and as I say, a wee bit of zesty grassiness the further into the taste that you go as well. So yeah, all in all, quite an interesting composition this beer, we have to say that. So yeah, interesting stuff. On the fruity side of things then, let's have a little look at that front third of your palate and just talk about that. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of bready build up in there. So kind of brown bread in the base, white bread in the middle, and then the wheaty bitiness on top. Then the base of that front third of your palate, yeah, you've got the brown bready bread crust in there. On top of that, you get the Jacob's cream cracker, the brown bread, the white bread, and then the smoother, more dense wheaty white bread, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at the fruity side of things then. So at the back of that front third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of you do get a nice little bit of that stronger, deeper, big grapefruit that you'd expect from the citrus. So that's there. On top of that, you get the kind of more juicy, zesty, kind of pink grapefruit as well. So that's quite interesting. And as you move further forward, you feel the citra coming out a wee bit more. The pink grapefruit is of course going to come from the talus in this one. I was nearly ready to say strata there, but yeah, the pink grapefruit's coming from the talus in this one for sure. But yeah, you move forward from that, there's a lovely big sort of peachy character coming out of the beer. So yeah, a lovely big kind of peachy note out of this one. Then you get the big juicy ripe mangoes, which is what you'd expect from Citra. And as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, yeah, underneath you've got little touches of like apricot. And yeah, there's little touches of apricot and things like that in there. And on top of that, a juicier, like more oily pineapple. And as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, it's all about the big sort of zesty, lemony character as well. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice in this one. So it gets a big thumbs up from me, and that sort of lemony, zesty character kind of merges in with all the grassy esters that this beer has too. So yeah, I think we've covered the flavour of this one quite extensively at this point. So the unique characters for me are the more kind of deep, dank, piney resinous notes and the floral aromatic spice. I think that's what kind of sets this double IPA apart, along with the sort of more grainy aspects that it has from the yeasty side of things and the malt base as well. This is quite a different double IPA, New England double IPA compared to other ones that I've had recently. So let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. For me, this beer is pushing toward the top end of mid-body. The carbonation is very, very smooth. The beer does have a lovely sort of kind of creamy character to it as well. So yeah, lovely sort of creamy character to this one. Not too much in the way of carbonation, not really a prickle. Yeah, more of a creamy, smooth double IPA this one. But yeah, you've got a big bitterness to this beer, as I say. I think this one will be like 70 or maybe even 80 IBUs to it, which is a bit more than the standard kind of 40 you get with New England double IPAs. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. But yeah, the malt base in this one, you've got a little bit of graininess in the background, lovely smooth bread in the middle, a bit of oaty creaminess and a bit of sweetness on top. And then, yeah, you've got that, you've got that kind of big fruity character out of this one too. So yeah, more of a kind of, it's got a lot of citrusy zest to it, this one, from the grapefruit and from the lemony character. So this combination of hops in this one's quite interesting. You get softer tropical notes out of it into the aftertaste, but yeah, quite grainy. Yeah, I think it's fair to say quite grainy, this one. Big piney resinous and spicy green component to it, and then yeah, quite citrusy and zesty. So there's a lot of kind of punchiness to the flavour of this. So this beer really is a different pace, a change of pace compared to the other New England double IPAs that I've had in recent times. But all in all, a really, really interesting one, and I'm certainly glad that I got to try this. My first solo brewery Cloudwater review in quite a wee while, actually. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Finally, we got to the end of a review without the camera buggering up. Touch wood. So yeah, this one was the Fundamental Frequency, an 8% New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the wonderful Cloudwater Brewing Company in Manchester in England. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Cloudwater Brewing Company as well, and we will see about returning to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, and I will catch you guys in another video. Check out my social media, check out Cloudwater Brewing Company's social media, and I'll see you later. Ciao just now.